Hello and welcome to the channel. So today I wanted to do a bit more coloring, but this one is going to be a little bit different. You see, I have this book here, this Naughty Cats book, and I have a few pages that I have already colored, and I want to go in and try and add in more detail to this and just make it, a little bit more unique. For the art supplies, I'm using my ohuhu markers as well as some artistry paint pens, and I'm going to be doing a little video on those paint pens soon, so keep an eye out for that. So starting off with this piece here, I want to add in a little bit more dimension. As you can see, it's pretty much just flat coloring, which there's nothing wrong with. I just wanted to make this pop a little more and just make it a bit more interesting and lively. So I'm going into the cat tree behind the subject, as you can see, and I'm adding in some shadows as well as some sort of dotted textures, because this cat tree is going to be sort of like that fuzzy texture that you get on cat scratches, so I wanted to show that more. As well as the little ball of yarn at the bottom there, because that is the same color that I put as the flowers on the cat scratcher. Now, I'm not doing any crazy blending yet because I want to emphasize texture in this. So the pretty much blending technique I'm using is going in with that spotty texture and then just building up layers of shadows where I want the shadows to be. Instead of blending them in together, I'm just sort of tapping the color in. Now, I felt like the walls were a little bit boring and flat, so I went in with a slightly darker grey and added in some little patterns for like a wallpaper. And then after that, I kind of felt like it was a little bit too dark, so I tried to go over it with a lighter grey, and that just added a bit of texture in there. Wasn't exactly purposeful, but I kind of like the final results for the wall anyways. Now I'm just adding in some slight shadows and highlights to the piece in random areas, just to try and add a bit more dimension and sort of show that different surfaces have different textures. And now we're going to go into the cat here, and I'm adding in some sort of flicking motions with my markers, and this is just going to emphasize the fur texture, and later on we're going to add in some more textures over the top with the paint pens to try and accentuate the emotion of the piece. But I really like how I decided to make this cat a color point cat, because I just felt like it really worked with the base color that I had down and the blue eyes already. And it also draws your eye to the face of the cat and the edges, like the tail and the legs and the ears, and really just accentuates the pose that the cat has as well, which I think looks really cool. Now, this is a fun part here. I've decided to go in with my artistry paint pens, and I'm just adding in some texture to those cat towers in the background. And I really want to go pretty crazy with this one and just experiment and see what I can do. The cool thing about these paint pens is that they are opaque, or mostly opaque, so I can actually go in and cover up some of that line art, and that's going to help make this piece look more like an artwork and a painting instead of just a coloring page. And this is really fun because you can sort of make the details your own, cover up things that you don't really like that much, or just accentuate areas like the fur standing up on the back of the cat. Now, I had a little bit of trouble earlier with the paint pens because I put a layer of pink over the black lines on the cat tree, and when it dried, it sort of dried not as opaque as I preferred. So I went back in with a white one, and I pretty much just went over those lines with white, let it dry fully, and then went over with the colored one, and that turned out a lot better. I really want to make a test for these paint pens in the future. Maybe I'm just not doing it right. Maybe I'm just not shaking the pen up enough. Who knows? But let me know in the comments below if you want to see that, and I'll definitely make it. But yeah, with that cat tree, I basically did the exact same thing I did with the markers. After I covered up that liner, I just went in with some purple, pink, white, and a little bit of yellow as well, and just added in little speckly highlights here and there to sort of accentuate the shape that kind of was lost slightly when I covered up the line arts. So when you cover up the line art, you kind of have to add something else to sort of show the form of whatever you're drawing, because sometimes it can turn into a blob if you're not careful. Just something to think about when you're changing the details on these coloring pages. Now, I wasn't a huge fan of how this sort of like picture frame looked in the background, so I decided to just go over it with the paint pens as well and just draw in that sort of wooden texture a little bit better, because I feel like I went a little bit too heavy with the shadow and then it kind of just looked a bit weird once I removed the line art. So I pretty much had to just like go in and just refine things until I liked it. Now I decided to carefully remove some of the line art from this cat. I didn't want to remove all of it because I still wanted emphasis on the cat. As you can see, the background sort of like it's a little bit less full on now, and I wanted the cat to sort of still stand out. So I changed some of the line art just in the areas that I wanted a little bit more lighter and a little bit more colored, but I still left some of the black lines in areas like the face and the darkest areas like the ears and the paws, just to sort of still emphasize those parts. Now I felt like the shadows weren't as deep as I liked in the background. As you can see, the cat scratcher thing sort of like blends too much with the background, so I decided to go in just with a little bit of markers and pens just to sort of deepen those shadows and make it still look nice and contrasty. So here's the next piece, and this one I really like. I sort of tried to be very careful with the colors that I picked for this piece because I wanted it to have a sort of vintage cutesy kind of vibe. So I decided to color in the microwave like this vintage sort of red and silver design, and then I kept everything sort of really warm, a lot of cream colors and pink colors and just like fiery orange colors, just to give it that retro kind of vibe. I also really like how I colored in the cat here, but I feel like he's a little bit too intense compared to the dog, if that makes sense. Like I feel like I went a little bit further than just flat coloring for him, but that's okay because we're going to go in and fix this piece and make it all look nice and cohesive. So I scared myself slightly with the dark shadows that I put under this counter here. As you can see, it's quite dark. It's darker even than the counter itself. But you know what, I just trusted the process because it's going to look pretty intense first when you add in shadows to like flat color. But as you add shadows everywhere else, it starts to not look as crazy. And that's what I'm pretty much hoping for anyways. But yeah, we're going in just like before. We're adding in some shadows here and there and also textures. I was really excited to do like a dark sort of wooden texture on the counter here. And I thought it was pretty fun to just like go a little bit crazy with the shadows and the wood grain. And after this I decided to go into the ham and add in sort of like a square texture, like the ham's sort of baked. And I just love how the cat and the dog are like working together to get this ham. I just thought it was really cute. But yeah, with this piece, I decided to go in with a lot of reds and pinks to shade the piece as well. I didn't want to just add in textures and shadows with a darker version of the color. I wanted to sort of deepen the shadows a little bit. So as you can see on the ham, I've added in a lot of like reds and pinks, and in other places that you're going to see soon, I added in lots of like little details with different colors to sort of push the depth of this piece. So with this piece, I tried to emphasize wooden textures a lot. As you can see on the front there, where the towel is, I'm not sure if it's an oven or just a little plaque, so I decided to go in with wood and just have it look like wood, just because I wanted to have that wooden texture somewhere else. And now we're going to go in with the wallpaper here, and I learnt my lesson from last time. When adding in like detail, I didn't want to add the sort of patterns on the wallpaper too dark at first because I didn't want to detract too much from the details of the piece. So we're going in with a light pink color, and that's going to layer over the creamy yellow color to make a nice sort of peachy orange. And I actually really like the way that that looked. And the other wall, as you can see, the base was a darker yellow color, so it layered pretty nicely and made a slight darker version of that peachy color. And I think those lines work really well to draw your eyes down to the ham, which is the main focus of the piece, which I think is just really cute. Now I'm going to go in and add other like patterns to the piece, because I really want to sort of emphasize patterns as well as that wood texture to get that retro vibe. So we're adding in a little bit of a plaid texture to the oven mitt, as well as the little tea towel towards the bottom of the illustration. And I pretty much just used like a few different shades of a color and add in those lines, and then where the lines crisscross I add in a darker square, and that just makes it like look like that plaid kind of texture that I really love. Now we're going to go into the dog here and add a bit of a shaggy, furry texture, and this is going to balance really nicely with the cat, because I went further with the cat than I did with the dog. So we got to like bring the details in the dog out a bit more so that they look like they're a sort of unified team, if that makes sense. That's also why I decided to use the same color palette for the cat and the dog, because I wanted to show with color the story that they are working together towards a common goal, which is the ham, by the way. Now the shading on the cat is still done more than the dog, but I still wanted to add in some texture to this cat, because we need to see some of that furry sort of texture to like sort of show that they are, you know, the same kind of texture, if that makes sense. They're both furred animals. So I went in with my markers and just did some little lines like I did for the dog, and I just changed a little bit of the shadow under the eyes of the cat, just to sort of emphasize the cat's eyes and show that he is being very cheeky looking up at that ham. Now this is at the point where I sort of felt like it still feels a bit more like a color page and not like a drawing. So I wanted to go in with some, you know, white pens here and there, and colored pens, you know, my paint pens. And I didn't want to go too overboard like I did last time with the cat tree, because I want to try different effects. So I just went in and added in some highlights here and there. And I also covered the line art for the pepper shaker, which I believe should be a salt shaker, but I'm not sure why I decided to make it a pepper shaker, but I guess it's unique. And just to show that some of these surfaces have like a shiny sort of exterior, like the microwave there. And yeah, I think it turns out pretty well. So here's the results of this piece, and honestly I really like it, probably more than the first one that I did. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. So for the final piece of this video, I decided on this one because I just felt like it was really cute to have these cats sort of getting into these boxes of items, and I decided to sort of paint or color the boxes as if they were presents, because I just felt like that was pretty fitting for this time of year, and I just think it's really cute. And I just wanted to have fun with patterns in this one, because we touched patterns a little bit last time with the sort of gingham and the stripy wallpaper, but I wanted to like experiment more with that because I had fun with it, and add in some different patterns to all of these boxes with these naughty little cats. So for this first one I did purple, and I did a sort of plaid texture very similar to the gingham on the last coloring page. And then after that I decided this one I thought would put hearts all over because it would work with the pink, and I just wanted to experiment a little bit with the repeating pattern of the hearts, and I just felt like it was fun to do. After that I wanted to do some stripes on the back box here, and I decided to go in with my paint pens and add in those stripes with a lighter color just to sort of bring the highlights up of the piece. And I just decided to do thin stripes for this because I didn't want it to be like too close to the sort of plaid purple box. After this I realized we got to add in some wood texture because I painted, or I keep saying painted, I colored the ground a brown color to do like a wood texture, like a hardwood floor. So I had to go in, and then I realized that was a little bit like time consuming to add in all of the sort of wood grain and then go back in and blend it, but I felt like it was worth it in the end. So to do that, I just went in with a darker brown, and then I did flicks of like lines in different lengths, and I decided to keep them all the same like sort of direction so it shows like it's a wood texture. And then I went in with a lighter color just to try to blend that out a little bit, and then I just pretty much layered those two techniques over each other until I was happy with the wood texture. I'm not sure if I'm explaining this properly. I'm trying my best, but it's been quite a while since I've made some videos, so yeah, let's move on. So to this purple box in the back, I decided to put in a sort of speckled texture to it. I'm not sure what I was planning to do. Maybe like it's kind of like a purple cow print, or maybe it's just smudges on the box, I don't know, but I thought it looked cute. So after this, I went into the items in the boxes, and I added in some different textures to the frames there, as well as the stuffed animal. And I decided to do that speckly, fluffy texture to that stuffed animal because I really liked it when I did it on the cat scratcher in the first piece. And for the last box, I kept it quite simple because the items in the box are quite textured. So I just added in some subtle speckly texture in the shadows, and then I used a lighter color just to add in more texture while not really adding a lot of contrast to the box, and I think it made it pretty interesting looking. So now that the boxes are done, I think that this piece is starting to look pretty nice. It's coming together pretty well, but I still have to add a few more details here and there, like some shadows on the flower pot that was tipped over, as well as finally the cats. I kept this part to last because I wanted to make sure that I did it well, and I wanted the contrast in the whole piece to be done so that when I added in the textures to the cats, they stand out really nicely. So for this light grey coloured cat, I added in some fuzzy texture. And then I had a lot of fun with the sort of tortoiseshell calico cat because I added in some like lines to the different patches of color, and I did a darker orangey brown color for the orange parts, a sort of softer dark brown color for the brown areas, and then for the white areas of the cat I did a warm gray. And I just think it looks really satisfying having those like textures be different colors in the different patches of color. And I'm just going into the wall here and adding in some shadows just to sort of outline the different shapes in the piece, as well as on the ground as well, because you know we have to have some deeper shadows there. It helps draw your eye to the subjects of the piece and just makes it more fun. And also I just really enjoy outlining sort of drop shadows because I just find it really satisfying to do. I really like this coloring book because I just think that it shows the side of cats so perfectly, the naughty side of cats, because I have 6 cats at home and they can be quite naughty as well, but we love them anyways. So yeah, let me know in the comments below if you want to see more pieces from this coloring book, because I definitely want to do them. So after that, we're going to go in with the paint pens now and just add in some little highlights here and there. I don't want to go overboard because I already really like the contrast of this piece. And if I add too much highlights, it's probably going to go a little bit too intense and just look like there's too much going on in the piece. So I just added in the highlights to places that I felt were essential, like the edges of the boxes, some little lines on the picture frames to show that it's glass, and just here and there where I felt like needed a subtle highlight. And yeah, here's the final results, and honestly I loved doing this. It was really fun to just go into pieces that already had flat coloring and just do my favorite part of the coloring, which is adding details and textures and patterns and shadows and highlights. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye everyone.